Welcome to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. And now your host, Tim Johnson.
We'll discuss a critical aspect of Louisiana's economy, the construction industry, when Michael McDuff, Executive Director of the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors, joins us on this edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Louisiana businesses, by partnering with your local community and technical college foundation, you're guaranteed a skilled, highly competent workforce, homegrown talent, trained specifically to meet your needs, whatever those needs are. Visit this website to learn more about how to partner with your local Louisiana Community and Technical College Foundation. To better prepare for tomorrow, become a partner today.
At Optimal, we understand what's at stake during your projects. That's why we value integrity, trust, and expertise. We retain proven and experienced craftsmen, and with multiple locations, we can execute hundreds of customized project solutions across the country, so you stay ahead of schedule and under budget. At Optimal, you come first, plain and simple. We have your back, and we always deliver. Experience the Optimal difference.
Are you a licensed contractor? There's lots of good contractors in Louisiana doing work the right way, but unfortunately, too many unlicensed contractors are working outside the licensing requirements. Working as a contractor in Louisiana requires a license for the company doing the work. The Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors wants to help you get licensed to allow you to conduct work legally. It's not difficult to get the license. We can help you. Go to lacontractor.org for more information. Licensed contractors, it's the law.
For 8 seconds in the arena before an afternoon in the field. For a promise to students that honors success in the classroom. For championships earned on the bayou. For innovators committed to reclaiming our coastline. The universities of Louisiana. For your future. For our future.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Michael McDuff, Executive Director of the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors, an old friend, is my guest. Buddy, welcome back to the show.
Good to see you, Tim.
We were talking before we started taping. Our friendship goes back 25 years. We worked together at Associated Builders and Contractors. You, in fact, were my boss when I came there, and you've had a great career in this industry, and we're going to talk a lot about all of that, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors. Critically important part of the economy when it comes to regulating and managing the construction industry. Give us an overview of the history and the mission of the board.
The Licensing Board for Contractors was created in 1956. It was created by the construction industry that knew that it needed to regulate itself to help better protect the public for contractor licensing, but more importantly, the credibility of the industry, the construction industry, because as you and I have seen over the course of our life, we've seen the great things about our industry, and I'm certain throughout this today we'll discuss that. But the construction industry established this through the legislature so that we could set forth a level playing field for the construction industry on behalf of the public, but also the integrity of this industry.
Well, and we're going to talk about fraud, and we're going to talk about a lot of those things and how the board helps to minimize fraud in the industry, because while 99.5% of the construction companies that are out there and the individuals who are involved in the industry in our state do things the right way all the time, just like any other profession, there are a certain number that might not want to do it the right way, and we'll talk about that more later. It seems like we can't shake this COVID thing. It has changed the face of business and how business is executed all across the world.
Right.
So let's talk just briefly about how you and your team have managed during the pandemic. How have you stayed productive? What has it meant? And also, what are some of the changes that you've seen and that you've put in place that might be permanent as you go forward?
And the virus, the COVID-19, is all the new norms that the world, not just in Louisiana, but the new norms that we have to adapt. We have to be flexible. And, and I do believe as we go through this, there will be positives that come from this because in the business community, in the business world, it has thrown obstacles throughout every profession, every business, but particularly in Louisiana, as you and I know, we're a strong culture and to survive. And so we have to find ways to adapt, flexibility. The working remotely is a reality today for so many companies, so many businesses, that as long as you can serve your public, your constituencies, you have to adapt and find different ways to do it. With the Licensing Board for Contractors, we've been able to do that. We've been able to continue to serve the needs of the general public as it relates to contractor licensing and enforcement, but particularly for the contractors, to help the contractors. We've been very flexible, very, I'll call it relaxing our restrictions and our laws and that happens throughout our country, that we have to be able to help the contractors to survive through this virus.
It's interesting, and I think all of us will be doing things a little bit differently as we go forward. You talked about the history and the mission of the Contractors Licensing Board, Michael. One of the things that's always been very interesting to me is that it is a board where contractors regulate contractors.
Correct.
And so it's not government necessarily, a board of government officials putting their thumb on an industry. It's individuals from the industry regulating the industry. Talk about that leadership, talk about your board and how these individuals are appointed, because I think that's a critically important part of how you manage your organization.
And that's a good point. As you and I, in our younger years, as we were involved with Associated Builders and Contractors, and we had the opportunity to work with lots and all the construction trade organizations, this board is comprised of various boards, organizations, Associated Builders and Contractors,
Associated General Contractors, the oil field contractors, the electrical contractors, mechanical, all phases of the construction industry, trade organizations submit nominees, and they're all appointed by the governor. The governor of Louisiana makes the appointments. But the truth is that these are professionals that give back to their industry. You and I learned that as young men, that people in this profession, they want to have a higher level of professionalism in their industry. That's why they serve. They serve to regulate the construction industry, not because they're paid. They do it. They provide their own expertise, their time, their efforts, so that they can give back and make it a better industry in Louisiana. You know, you think about this whole idea of licensing and regulation, and generally those folks who are in business hear those two words and it generates concern. But in the circumstance of the Contractors Licensing Board, it truly is, although they are appointed by the governor, they are nominated by the industry, they are put forth, they serve because they know it's the right thing to do, and it's been a very successful board to help that aspect of our economy. You know, you think about the ABCs making nominations, the Associated General Contractors, and all of these different folks. You've been able to work with some wonderful construction leaders over time. Just what's that experience been like for you?
Well, it's just that when we started in our profession and our careers, that it was amazing to see that competitors in an industry, people that competed every day with their businesses, that came together with a common mission of what the needs of the industry are and work together to accomplish great things in the construction industry, amazingly.
And that's been a real hallmark. And we're going to talk about how wonderful this industry has been in this state in particular when we come back from this break. We're visiting with Michael McDuff. He's the Executive Director of the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors. You're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Since 1919, we've designed and constructed hundreds of industrial plants, roads, ships, dams, and executed some of the most complex jobs in the world. In fact, our quality and dependability are legendary. Today, the legend continues as Brown & Root delivers engineering, construction, maintenance, and industrial specialty services throughout the U.S. and the world from our headquarters here in Louisiana. We are Brown & Root.
We are united in battle to defeat a microscopic enemy. Manufacturing chemicals that safeguard lives. Refining essential fuels. Delivering in a world of uncertainty. Our creative energy is the force helping to keep families, the community, and each other safe. Together, we are Shell, the rhythm of Louisiana.
Gulf Coast Bank and Trust is giving our customers the power to bank anywhere, anytime during this challenging time.
It's about doing the right thing for our customers.
We're right there with you. Gulf Coast Bank is invested in technology with a local touch, a smart way to manage your money and your time. With our mobile banking app, you can make deposits, check balances, transfer money, pay bills, and more. Gulf Coast Bank and Trust, the bank that cares about you. Member FDIC. Message and data rates may apply.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Michael McDuff, Executive Director of the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors, is my guest. We talked about how our relationship goes back to the mid-90s, 1994, when we were both on the staff of the Associated Builders and Contractors here in Louisiana. We have both had the great pleasure of working with some titans in this industry, if you think about it. Andy Dupuy, Eddie Risponi, Richard Gill, Roland Toops, Don McCall. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. Art Favre, guys that do things and have done things the right way. You and I have both said for a long, long time that this state is blessed with some of the best local commercial and industrial contractor talent in terms of these companies and these individuals anywhere in the country. You served as the chairman of the national organization of the licensing board. You get to see firsthand. Talk about, Michael, the quality of the contractor in Louisiana. I want to talk about the companies. I want to talk about training and safety and all of those things.
And you know, that was the opportunity for you and I as young people, that we would be in meetings with major competitors of major companies, very successful companies, that it amazed you and I that these competitors could sit down at a table and work together and to identify what the needs of the industry and their clientele, what the needs for them to help the industry and to work with their clients on a win-win situation. And particularly during those time frame when the safety and the craft training were the critical needs as it relates particularly to the industrial and the commercial construction industry, that they got together and they made it happen. I mean, you know, I say it in a very brief way, but these are big leaders of companies that they did not need federal government, they did not need state government.
Didn't want it.
They didn't want it. They said, guys, this is what we need to do. This is the funding we need. Let's do it. And you and I were like, unbelievable.
Well, and you put your finger on it. These guys would compete against one another like mad, as thoroughly and as aggressively as any company can compete in its line of work. But when they walked in the doors at ABC or when they walked in the doors at AGC, they put aside that competition and they focused on what was best for the industry. And one of the real things that you think about when you think about commercial and industrial construction, particularly in our state, and on the commercial side, you think of guys like Lenny Lemoyne and Mike Polito and you know Johnny Fife and all of these guys, is that they committed to training the individuals who worked for them. They put them in the best training programs, and they created the largest privately funded craft training center in America, the Pelican chapter, with locations in both Lake Charles and Baton Rouge, and the Bayou chapter that does a wonderful job down in New Orleans training folks. You've seen that as well, and you were a big part of that, Michael. Talk about that training.
That's where we're so blessed in the state of Louisiana, that the leaders of our industry and the work ethic that our industry has demonstrated has been such a a win-win for our industry, for the clientele, for the state of Louisiana. And as you and I have talked about, we've had competitions throughout the nation in different crafts and different professions that the Louisiana workforce is outstanding. And that is all from the leaders that have made this a commitment that if you want to be in the construction industry of Louisiana, you have to do it the right way, which parallels into what I do now with the licensing and regulation, that it certainly makes it easier because the industrial and commercial industry regulate themselves very well, but we get such a great product. But the industry in Louisiana gives back to help raise the bar.
Right. Well, and they give back in so many ways. Their engagement in the political process. Who in this state has been more influential in politics than Lane Grigsby at Cajun? Right. You think about all of these folks in there. The other thing that we've seen and that we've watched is their commitment to the culture of safety.
Yes.
Keeping, not only training their employees well, but keeping them safe on the job site. Nothing is more important than that, and
Correct.
you've been able to see that firsthand.
And this industry, the construction industry is not easy. Projects are very complicated, and to maintain the standards for safety and protection of our workforce, it's amazing. And the contractors understand, if you want to be successful in this industry, if you want to get into the gates of Exxon or Dow or BASF, whatever it may be, you have to have a standard. And the industrial sector, with its own regulations, have made that a mandate, which our industry has successfully accomplished that, which we don't see that everywhere around the country, but we see it here in Louisiana.
Well, you talk about other places around the country, and we got about a minute left in this segment, but I mentioned it, this local contractor talent. If you look particularly on the industrial side, and in some cases on the commercial side as well, you look at other places around the country and you see these larger jobs being executed by these large national global firms, the Bechtels and the Fluors and
Yes.
these big firms that come into all of these different states. These projects along the Gulf Coast, you generally are seeing a Louisiana housed, domiciled company that goes out there and does it. The Turners, the Brown and Roots, the
Yes.
ISCs, the Cajuns, the Performances, all these companies we've mentioned. That local aspect is critical here.
It is, and the reality is we can't hold our workforce from going anywhere they want to go, and we shouldn't. We, as you and I know, that mobility of work around this country, we want to train our workforce. We hope that they'll stay here in Louisiana to do the work, but if they want to go to Texas or wherever, that's mobility and free enterprise.
That's the beauty of the industry. Let's take a break. We come back, I want to talk a little bit about fraud and how the Contractors Licensing Board works to prevent fraud in the construction industry in Louisiana. We're visiting with Michael McDuff. He's the Executive Director of the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors. You're watching the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.
Exo Modular Scaffold, a Bartlett Group company, is an innovative leader in the scaffold services industry, with a strong following of loyal customers in the refining, petrochemical, chemical, and nuclear industries.
Baton Rouge, we know how to deal with hardship. Floods, hurricanes, illnesses, they threatened our families, our livelihoods, our communities, and spirits. But we always find the energy to overcome it all. The energy to work together and help one another. The energy to pull ourselves into a brighter future. We're honored to be part of Baton Rouge. Together, we have the energy to move forward, and that's what we're going to do.
Exo Modular Scaffold, a Bartlett Group company, is an innovative leader in the scaffold services industry with a strong following of loyal customers in the refining, petrochemical, chemical, and nuclear industries.
Welcome back to the Louisiana Business and Industry Show. Michael McDuff of the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors is our guest. Let's talk just briefly about the process of licensure for contractors in Louisiana. If I'm out there and I want to begin to do some commercial, industrial, residential work, what do I need to do?
The licensing process for Louisiana, one of our main missions is to make sure that for any way that we can streamline for efficiencies and simplification of licensure is our mission, because as any regulatory body, we certainly don't want to put more burdens on any contractor. And the licensing process with Louisiana is to download an application, complete the application. It's very easy. You must, and one thing to make sure everybody understands, we license a company. We do not license individual persons. So the company that is seeking a license, a contractor's license, one of the most critical things is to make sure that you're registered with the Secretary of State to do business in Louisiana. That way that as each company is being regulated at the state and federal level and the level playing field. But the efficiency for the application for licensure, it may be within a matter of 3 weeks to 30 days. And so it's not overwhelmingly burdensome in the process.
I think that will be a hallmark of Michael McDuff's leadership at the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors, that simplification, that reduction of red tape, making this process real and effective, but simplified to the degree that it can be. Let's talk about fraud, Michael, because in the final analysis, that's the biggest reason for your existence, right? Correct. Is to ensure the public is not defrauded when it comes to construction work. Talk about the big picture there. It's a significantly small percentage of the individual actors in this industry that are out there that might perpetrate fraud, but you do see it.
Yes.
Talk about it, talk about some of the things you've seen, and talk about how you guys work to prevent it going forward.
And again, as much as we talk about the great contractors in Louisiana and the success stories, on the flip side, the contractor fraud is real. It's real throughout the nation. That contractor fraud is the situation, particularly in the residential industry, because as we've talked previously, the industrial and commercial industry regulate themselves and protect themselves very well. But contractor fraud, particularly in Louisiana, when we have storms, hurricanes,
floods,
events, and we call them storm chasers, people that these fraudulent players and storm chasers, they go around the country and they're trying to cause damage, and they do, but it's particularly important for our consumers to pay attention and to protect themselves. And, we have very good partnerships with our local law enforcement. The district attorneys of Louisiana have been very aggressively protecting consumers as best we can, because no governmental agency can be behind closed doors between a consumer and a contractor. Our Attorney General's office has been working aggressively, but the main thing to message to consumers, when you have people knocking on your door promising inexpensive, faster approach to any services they may offer,
and asking for a whole bunch of money up front.
Those are sure signs that when it sounds too good to be true, pay attention, because again, it's the money of our own consumers that you have to protect yourself. You have to check references, and don't make the mistake of just going for the cheaper way until you verify that these people are licensed, that they're competent, that their credentials are good. Our website provides that information to verify line We have search engines, and again, it's unfortunate as much scam as we see around the country. And one of the realities is on our elder community. In the residential world, they there's so much abuse and fraud there that is terrible, and it puts a bad image on the construction industry, but that's part of our job from the enforcement is to help protect the public, but they need to protect themselves more so.
You know, you're there as an agency, but it's critically important, you know, your ads that you run both on this show and on others is, you know, if it sounds too good to be true, as you've mentioned, it probably is. Protect yourself, reach out, ensure that your contractor is licensed, check his references, make sure you're doing your own due diligence to make sure that you don't put yourself in a position. We got about a minute and a half left here in the show, so let's talk about what might be on the horizon for the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors. What are you guys working on?
And you know, it's not just the virus and the new norms, but you know, our whole objective is to find ways that we can streamline as I've seen some of your previous shows, you know, higher education, the online world that we're going to. With our examinations for licensure, we are looking aggressively at how we can do more online examinations to make it less burdensome for the contractors, faster, more efficient in the process. But the main thing is in our role with the licensing board to communicate the best way that we can help the public, but also maintain the integrity of our industry, because that's the most important thing, that in the profession of construction, that we're serving well for the clientele and the customers.
Absolutely. So if I'm watching and I want more information, how do I get in touch with the Louisiana State Licensing Board for Contractors?
The website, it's lacontractor.org.
Very easy?
Very easy. The information is there. The search engines for the public, for the contractors on how to apply for their license, how to download different documents that they need, for people that want to understand more about what our regulations are and what our laws are to help better understand of how we conduct our job.
Well, you, my friend, have spent your career making the construction industry in Louisiana better, safer, more productive, and you've helped to protect our citizens from fraud. So keep up the good work, my friend. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Great to see you.
Good to see you too. That's a wrap, guys. Thanks for joining us. Join us again next week at this very same time for another edition of the Louisiana Business and Industry Show.